What's up, guys? Welcome to the Christian Metalhead Show. I'm your host, Andrew Hopper. Today we're going to talk about the differences between death metal and deathcore. Earlier this week, I kind of asked you guys on my Facebook page what you guys thought the differences were between these two genres because I guess it's a pretty debated topic. You know, there are lots of death metal bands that I consider death metal that other people would consider deathcore. So I thought it'd be something interesting to talk about, and maybe we could clear something up a little bit, I guess. First, I'm going to kind of give my opinion of what I think it is. I'm sorry if it's not what your opinion is, but I'll be honest, I don't care if you don't like my opinion. This is kind of just basic understanding of what the genres are actually described as, and you know what bands in the genre sound like and how they are different. First, before we get into that, we'll do the Bible verse for the day. This is Psalm chapter 51. For those of you who don't know, I'm working on a worship album for my solo project, and the intro is going to be called The Awakening, and it's going to be based off of this verse, Psalm 51, where basically King David has an awakening. He realizes how he's done wrong, and pastor actually talked about it in church today, which is really cool. But it's going to be kind of what inspires my album. It'll be kind of in different steps, but I'm not here to really talk about my music, but that's what it's going to be based off of, is Psalm 51. So our verse for the day is Psalm 51, 1 through 4. Have mercy upon me, O God, according to thy loving kindness. According unto the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you and you only have I sinned, and done this evil in your sight, that thou mightest be justified when thou speak, and be clear when thou judge. Basically, that's going to be some part of where I draw inspiration for the worship album I'm working on, for those of you curious. But there is our verse for the day. Now let's get into our topic. So first, I'll kind of give my opinion of kind of the differences between deathcore and death metal. We've talked about, deathcore on this show before. You guys could check that out. Link to the playlist of this show is in the description, and you can find lots of other stuff that we've talked about. So first, I'm going to describe what death metal is described as, like when you search it online. Death metal is an extreme subgenre of heavy metal music. It typically employs heavily distorted and low-tuned guitars played with techniques such as palm muting, tremolo picking, deep growling vocals, aggressive powerful drumming featuring double kick and blast beat techniques, minor keys or atonality, abrupt tempo, key, and time signature. Abrupt tempo, key, and time signature changes, and chromatic chord progressions. Lyrical themes of death metal may invoke slasher film stylized violence, religion, sometimes Satanism, occultism, nature, mysticism, mythology, philosophy, science fiction, and all sorts of stuff. They may describe extreme acts including mutilation, dissection, torture, cannibalism. So, when you think of death metal, lyrically, a lot of it is pretty intense stuff. Even Christian death metal is. But that's kind of what it's described as when you would Google it or whatever. And so I would kind of say the same thing whenever I think of death metal. I think of really fast blast beats, low-tuned guitars, definitely a lot of tremolo picking, and definitely the very heavy growls, especially like the really brutal death metal, that sort of thing. So that's basically kind of how I see death metal, and deathcore is basically a variation of that, which includes all the stuff I just described, but also takes like metalcore elements, like breakdowns, big thing, low-tuned guitars, which is in death metal too, and sometimes clean vocals, but they also incorporate a lot of different styles vocally. It isn't just flat out brutal heavy growls the whole time, or like the false chord screaming. They use more of a fry scream technique sometimes, and as far as vocally, I would say they do more vocally than death metal with deathcore. Um, Sometimes clean vocals, but that's more metalcore stuff. I don't think it's really, there's not a lot of deathcore bands that do clean vocals. Some are, but that's kind of how I see the two. The only real differences between deathcore and death metal that I see is that vocally, the vocalists of deathcore, they do more than just the heavy growls, and some would say that's why death metal is heavier, because they just do straight up heavy growls the whole time, and I would agree. And then breakdowns, basically similar riffing style with guitar riffs and everything. Death metal just doesn't have, definitely doesn't have as many breakdowns. Some say death metal is not supposed to have breakdowns at all, but they do have a similar style of, like, where say you come into the bridge, they do sort of a breakdown sort of thing with guitar riffs. It kind of all just depends on how you describe a breakdown, I guess. But deathcore definitely has lots of breakdowns. And stereotypical deathcore bands, that's basically all they do with their guitars. And I would say that's why a lot of people don't like the deathcore style, because it's not, they're not, some deathcore bands are kind of just stereotypical, and they don't really try as far as writing music and stuff like that goes. But I could also say the same for death metal vocals, who only use the same vocal technique, but at that, it's still a good vocal technique and sounds great and just fits with the style. Now I kind of give my opinion of what I think of the two. I would definitely agree death metal is heavier. Some say deathcore isn't creative at all, but there are subgenres and different things that really break that mold. I think, like technical deathcore sounds awesome, and symphonic deathcore definitely sounds really cool. And then you combine technical symphonic deathcore, and that's awesome. And there's blackened deathcore. There's lots of subgenres of deathcore that break that mold of just a kind of stereotypical style of guitar breakdowns and stuff. But I asked this question on my Facebook page, and some of you responded, so I'm going to read some of your guys' comments on that. Kind of give you guys like an idea of like what other people think as well, not just mine. So first we got Ivan Ramirez. Says, it's hard for me to differentiate them. The only thing I can think of is that deathcore has raspy shout-like vocals, as in metalcore, which is like what I was saying, the fry screams, and the rhythm bass in more groovy and with the infamous breakdowns, whereas death metal is far more brutal, has actually 100% growling, and the lyrical stuff is gorier, more sadistic, obscure, and violent. Yep, I would agree with that. That's just my opinion, as ignorant as I can be in deathcore. Ivan, I think you have actually a pretty good idea of what deathcore is. It definitely takes that metalcore style of vocals, and not as heavy as death metal growls, definitely, I would say. Got Brandon Hazlip. One second. Brandon, I hope I'm saying your last name right. I believe deathcore has more of a metalcore sound than death metal, which is definitely pretty much on point. Deathcore is just a combination of the death metal, which with the metalcore sound. AJ DeMello. Death metal to me is more closer to thrash, whereas deathcore is metalcore with death metal elements. One genre in each combo just seems more dominant. Yeah, you can look at it that way. Deathcore is metalcore with death metal elements, or death metal with metalcore elements. Kind of either way. One genre in each combo seems more dominant. Yeah, I would agree with that. With deathcore, it's definitely the more metalcore style that's more dominant, I would say. Okay, next comment. Michael X Morales. Deathcore has far more breakdowns and less rock for creativity. I don't know if that's what you meant to say. While death metal has plenty of different subgenres like melodic death, prog death, etc., deathcore also focuses more on being overly heavy. Deathcore definitely has far more breakdowns, I would say, And I agree with you. There are lots of stereotypical deathcore bands that basically all sound the same. And I think just any core genre has that issue, but there are some subgenres. I get what you're saying. There's lots of subgenres for the death metal to break that stereotype. There are a few, like I said, for deathcore, but definitely just not as in many bands as I would like there to be that would kind of change it up and not be stereotypical. And definitely with the low tunings, they definitely try to be heavier, but it's basically just boom, 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 and it's not really hard to write. Um, they just tune lower, and it sounds heavier. I would agree, but it's not as skillful in some of the writing. Um, there you guys go. Those are some of the opinions that you guys gave. Be sure to go and follow my Facebook page. You can follow from my homepage on YouTube, or you can check the link in the description. Go follow my Facebook page so you can be involved in these sort of things. Also, some of you guys might remember the 7-string gent jam that I did with my guitar. This week I decided to do one, but I let you guys decide. With all the talking that I did this last week about death metal and deathcore, I decided to do a poll. And let's see, we got 26 votes now, and we have 17 for death metal and 9 for deathcore. And I told you guys, whichever one got the most votes would be one that I wrote a guitar jam for. So be watching for that. I'll have that on my YouTube later after this video, for those of you guys who would like to check it out. Also, comment below what you guys think are the differences between deathcore and death metal. Comment below which ones are your favorites. But I don't want anyone being attacked for their opinions that they share about the two genres in my comments. Anyone gets aggressive, I'll remove the comments. I don't care. But everyone's free to share their opinion. Because I know deathcore and death metal people get pretty touchy about. So I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. But if all you have to say is negative, then get lost. That's all I'm going to say. You guys can also comment below what other genres do you think I should talk about on the show, or I should write a guitar jam for. And that's going to be it for this week's show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to smash like, subscribe, and comment below. And share if you really enjoyed. And thanks again for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Christian metal forever.